What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, it is game day. They take on the New York Giants tonight, Monday Night Football at Acrisure Stadium, a game that now holds the opportunity to put them in first place, sole possession of first place of the AFC North. We're going to dive into that, plus a busy weekend on the news front. Justin Fields suffers an injury just before game day. Meanwhile, another insider floats a wide receiver trade that sounds crazy, but might just be a realistic possibility. And then the AFC North, our game picks. And as we do every day, we will answer all of your questions. So make sure that you're tossing them in the chat during the live stream. Nick, it's a good one. It's chilly this morning, but it's a good one. Good fall, October, Monday Night Football ahead of us. How you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, it's always great whenever we actually get to come on here and do our episodes on a game day, because it doesn't happen very often. I think we get 2, maybe 3 times a year. So I'm excited to do this. I'm excited that it's a game day, and I'm excited that it's a sports equinox. The World Series has been great so far. We got game 3 of that tonight. Not like I'm going to watch hockey or basketball tonight, but it's nice that it's on in case, you need something after Monday Night Football and hopefully after a Steelers victory.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing better than sports, and more sports. And for those of you who don't have to watch the game to cover the game, it's a great opportunity to set up, 2, 3 TVs in the living room, really, really search your house for those loose cables to make sure that you could fit everything you can in one room and watch as many sports as humanly possible. It is a good day to be a sports fan. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they had a busy weekend, not the greatest of weekends as they prepare for the New York Giants. We'll start with an injury that I don't want to say shook the headlines yesterday, but definitely caught everybody's attention as the Steelers were preparing for the New York Giants, and that is Justin Fields suffering a hamstring injury during the team's walkthrough period prior to their game against the New York Giants. He'll undergo an MRI today. It'll probably reveal how serious the hamstring injury is. He's questionable heading into the game. I do not expect him to go, and if he does go, I could see him being an emergency quarterback so that the Steelers have 3, much like they did with Russell Wilson. Kyle Allen will be the backup, and then if they need a third guy for whatever reason, Justin Fields can be that answer. It's not great. This was supposed to be the game that we saw what the Pittsburgh Steelers offense has to offer with 2 quarterbacks. And if they can break out a Justin Fields package and utilize it correctly and in a fashion that you want to use throughout the season, now that's going to wait. To be honest, if you're looking for an optimistic standpoint here, because I like to give them from time to time, this isn't the game to do that in the first place. This is an easy game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I say that in the terms of record, who they're playing, injuries, so on and so forth. This is not on paper the biggest challenge for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I understand this is the NFL. I understand this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. At any moment, they can lose to anyone. That's just what history tells us with this organization. But if you're going to break it out, why do it on Monday Night Football against the Giants? Why not do it against the Ravens? Why not do it against the Commanders, who are still red hot, even with an injured Jaden Daniels? Spend the bye week to perfect it, that kind of stuff, and then break it out. I don't think it's the worst case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll hope this is nothing serious for Justin Fields, but definitely a shakeup for the Steelers injury report and their offense as a whole. It'll now be another week of Russell Wilson. Do you think this puts a bigger damper on the Justin Fields package than maybe just this week? Do you look at it and say, and we obviously don't know the injury, the extent of the injury. We'll find that out as it comes, but let's just say it's minor. Let's say this is, 2 weeks and Justin Fields will be good to go, ready to play. Do you think this puts a longer pause on the Steelers breaking out Justin Fields packages, almost as if they're using it as an excuse, like they did the other way around with Russell Wilson, to say, we'll keep that in our back pocket, but there's no reason to rush it?
No, I don't think it really affects it at all. I think the big reason that it doesn't is because of what comes next, right? You're going into the bye week. So regardless of whether or not Justin Fields was going to play tonight, he was going to get 2 weeks off anyway. So You have that time to kind of get the hamstring right. Now, if it persists and it is still an issue going into week 10 against the Washington Commanders, then yeah, I think it puts a damper on the potential of using Justin Fields packages. But what was the point of using those packages? To utilize his legs. If he's dealing with a bum wheel, there's no reason to put him out there and utilize those packages, especially when the only thing on tape with the just Russell Wilson alone offense is a 37-point performance. So
Yeah.
I think that if this is something minor, I don't think it's anything that puts a hold on their plans to utilize Justin Fields that couple of extra downs a game.
Yeah, and I want to point out the other side of this, and that is that this is exactly why the Pittsburgh Steelers would never think about trading either of these quarterbacks, because you just don't know what's going to happen, and they never want to find themselves in a situation where they only have one good quarterback and then Kyle Allen backing him up for the remainder of the season. The Steelers want to at all costs avoid Justin Fields going down, Russell Wilson going down, and then them finding themselves with Kyle Allen as their starting quarterback in week 16, week 17, heading into the postseason after a season where, well, this is in their hands, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but the AFC North is the Steelers for the taking right now. You don't want to take a risk there. That's exactly why all the Russell Wilson talk, that's exactly why all the Justin Fields trade talk is non-existent. And while everybody wants to bring it up, it doesn't hold any ground, and it won't hold any ground because the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to make a move and risk themselves when this has already happened twice this season. They dealt with a calf injury to one, a hamstring injury now to the other. They don't know what's coming next, but they're not going to take any opportunity or any risk in doing that. On the other side of the weekend, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they went into the weekend and reports emerged of them being one of many teams calling the Jacksonville Jaguars, excuse me, I'm sick as a dog and words are having a hard time coming out this morning, about Christian Kirk and a possible trade with the Jags for their top wide receiver. That ended 24 hours later when Christian Kirk broke his collarbone, is now out for the season, and the Pittsburgh Steelers lose yet another wide receiver option. But CBS insider Jonathan Jones floated a name to watch. And while he said it was very much so hypothetical, he did toss the Pittsburgh Steelers out there and use the Pittsburgh Steelers as the team in his hypothetical trade for Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson. He says it's a first-round pick, that you give up a first-round pick. And everybody will say, that's crazy. And I might agree with you, but we'll dive into that here in a second. What's not crazy is the Jets thinking that they should trade Garrett Wilson, because why not? You are 2-6. You just lost to the New England Patriots without Drake May. Let me say, without Drake May, Jacoby Brissett led a comeback victory over the Jets. Aaron Rodgers does not look the same. The wide receiver core does not look good at all. You don't have a head coach. Your defense is atrocious. It's just all around bad for the New York Jets. And you got to think they're at some point going to be looking to just sell house and move on to the next season and say the Aaron Rodgers experiment was a fail. We'll try again with the next one and see what happens. Garrett Wilson for a first-round pick. I'll ask you two parts here. One, would you do it? Because, I mean, you could say whatever you want. Garrett Wilson is worth a first-round pick. And there are some people that will say, never. You never trade a first-round pick for a guy. Why not trade a guy that was a first-round pick 2 years ago who's still clearly valued as a first-round pick and plays like a first-round pick and is young enough that you could make him a franchise wide receiver with George Pickens, and you already had plans to do that with Brandon Ayuk. Would you trade a first-round pick for a guy like Garrett Wilson? And do you think that possibility is something the Pittsburgh Steelers will think of if nothing else presents itself in the next week?
I'm wondering whether or not, or how much truth there is to the fact that the Jets are willing to trade him. Now, again, if they want a first-round pick back and they're noticing, all right, well, the Aaron Rodgers timeline didn't work, so we're going to be probably without a quarterback again when we're trying to restart this entire thing. Maybe they do want as many first-round picks as possible to get up in the, let's just say, opportunity next year for a Quinn Ewers, the opportunity next year for a Carson Beck or a Jalen Milroe. Maybe it makes a little bit of sense, but for the Steelers side of things, I think unequivocally, yes, I would do it if I was the Steelers, because I understand they're not without needs. They're not without holes on this roster, but this is one of the more complete teams that we've seen in the Mike Tomlin era. And they have told us via their moves, via the way that they speak, that they're trying to go for a Super Bowl right now.
Yes.
I understand that it would be nice to have that first round pick, and you don't trade a first round pick for anybody, but getting a guy who has had 2 1,000-yard seasons with checks notes 8 quarterbacks in the last 3 years, and he's well on pace to do that again, plus have a career high in touchdowns. I think it's worth it, especially, and again, this is a small factor in this, especially for a guy that has really good chemistry with Justin Fields already. So I would personally do it. Whether or not the Steelers would, it depends how desperate they are to be in win now mode, because I think we all agree of their holes, wide receiver is one of the biggest ones. And if you go out there and get Garrett Wilson, it's practically like you're spending next year's first rounder by just drafting a more mature Garrett Wilson.
I agree. If this was before the season, this is not a conversation to be had, or at least it goes in a different light. You're talking, well, you can't give up a first round pick because you don't know what the future holds for your quarterback position. You look at it and say, what if things don't work out this year? You're really going to put all your eggs in one basket and then lose or stink or not have a quarterback to rely on. But we're 8 weeks into the season. The Steelers, if they win tonight, are in sole possession of the AFC North. They sit at 6-2 heading into the bye week. They are clearly a wide receiver away from a great offense, and they have their quarterback. They have their quarterback right now that they believe could win them a Super Bowl in Russell Wilson, and they believe that. Whether me and you believe that doesn't matter. Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, Art Rooney, and everybody in that locker room believes that they are a Super Bowl worthy team with Russell Wilson at the helm. And then next year, you now have two options because it worked out perfectly. You saw Justin Fields, and if you want to pay him, okay, cool, bring Justin Fields back. He's your starting quarterback. If you don't, if you think Russ Wilson's the guy, and Russ keeps saying, I mean, he said it the other day on the Rich Eisen show, he wants to play into his 40s. If he wants to play a couple more seasons and you want to sign him, I bet you he comes back for a cheaper deal. And then you have Russell Wilson. So they're not thinking quarterback. The Steelers aren't sitting around thinking we need a first-round pick for a quarterback next year. Why not use it to go make a trade? They've done this before, and sometimes it's worth it. I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick was worth a first-round pick. And at the time, it was to save a season that they believed in, and they got just that. And this year, you don't need a Minkah. You need a Garrett Wilson. You need a star wide receiver to come in here and be a star wide receiver next to George Pickens. And is it the perfect fix? Probably not. Does it definitely boost your offense? 100%. And who knows what Garrett Wilson can do with a better quarterback? Because let's be honest, Russell Wilson in one game looked better than Aaron Rodgers has most of the season. And maybe that doesn't last, but maybe it does. And you look at it and say you have a better quarterback. I don't want to say a better running game, but a more consistent running game the last 2 weeks. And we'll see if that continues into 3 weeks here, and definitely a better defense, and you're on a winning football team. So it just feels like the atmosphere, the situation is plus, I mean, let's not ignore the fact that you have an offensive coordinator that like technically has a role, because I don't know what Nathaniel Hackett does if he doesn't call plays. He's just there because Aaron Rodgers likes him. And you have a head coach because the Jets don't have a head coach. So it's a much better situation. I think it'd be worth it for a first-round pick. He's probably the only name that I would say is worth it. And I don't know how serious the interest is, but I could say that the Jets are clearly in this is a dumpster fire, we're trying to fix it mode. And I don't know how soon. I mean, Woody Johnson has made it very clear he's willing to make sporadic moves. And what's stopping them from making another sporadic move? If this was nothing, you know, if this was another team that if this was the Jaguars, you know, and Garrett Wilson was Christian Kirk, I think it's a different conversation. But the fact that it's the Jets, and the Jets are known to just do the goofiest of things at the goofiest of times. I mean, why not? Why not make it work? I think Garrett Wilson for a first-round pick makes some sense for the Steelers. Will it happen? I don't know. But I do think it's a name to watch, especially because Schefter's reporting last week that teams are calling. I mean, that's not going to calm down after you lose to the Patriots. The Steelers aren't going to be like, yeah, well, you know, they still have a shot. They're 2-6, but there's an opportunity there. No, they're going to call harder.
Yeah, the timeline on the Jets this year is crazy. You go 2-3, you fire your coach, you then lose 3, or in the midst of losing 3 in a row, you trade for a top receiver in Devontae Adams, and then potentially trade away your young top receiver in Garrett Wilson. I mean, that's when you start looking at organizational malpractice. But this is the team we're talking about here, is the New York Jets.
Exactly. So leave the light on. Do not shut it off. There are names, the Brandon Ayuk thing seems crazy at first. I think Garrett Wilson seems crazy at first too, but I do think it's a possibility. And it might not be a possibility in the Jets' eyes, but I think the Steelers will call. I do think the Steelers will call. I'll also toss this out there, and there's not much conversation to have right now because we talked about it on Friday. Nothing has changed over the weekend. But I did talk to a source over the weekend who said that the Steelers are very much so still interested in Cooper Kupp, and that trade is not dead yet. The words that I got, I answered the phone. I won't lie to you. I'll set the scene here. Dead asleep, dead asleep. You could, if for those of you who think that, this is a blast, it is. I love every second of it. I love the midnight phone calls, everything. My wife, on the other hand, not the greatest fan of them. Mm-hmm. So I get a phone call, dead asleep, middle of the night, and I answer the phone and I was like, hey, what's going on? And they ask me a couple of questions. They're talking and they go, just want to let you know that the Cooper Kupp trade is not dead. It's still very much so alive. I said, all right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hung up the phone. I looked at my wife. I said, happy birthday. And then I went back to sleep. So for those of you who want to know how good of a husband I am, shaved a mustache, which I do appreciate everybody who gave some love on Instagram for Jillian. And then woke her up at 1 a.m. to talk about Cooper Kupp. So I think it's still very much so alive. Where it'll go, we'll see. All right, let's transition to the third part of the weekend before we get into our picks and answer everybody's questions here. Is the AFC North and how the Pittsburgh Steelers are very much so in control. And really, I just want to spend some time to talk about how the Pittsburgh Steelers really are in control of the AFC North right now. They run it, and if they beat the Giants, what's holding them back from winning it? I think everybody was talking Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and the Baltimore Ravens. They're it. That is it. They are red hot. You're not going to slow them down. The Steelers won't be able to get past them. At least not. I'm not going to say the fan base. The fan base did not think that way. They were well aware of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, history. National media, everybody else wants to talk. The Baltimore Ravens, they look fantastic. Nobody's going to be. The Steelers are not a competition to the Baltimore Ravens. Well, two things happened over the weekend. The first thing is that I was dead on when I said that the Cleveland Browns were only going to get better without Deshaun Watson because Jameis Winston threw for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he looked like the best quarterback the Cleveland Browns have had in 3 years, Joe Flacco included. I mean, he looked phenomenal, and they walk away winners over the Ravens, who since 2020 are now 12-14 against the AFC North, which says two things. One, the Steelers have a real shot at winning the AFC North, which goes miles in the postseason. And two, the Browns are a team to watch out for just for the Steelers. Are they going to make the playoffs? No, probably not. Although I don't know who's going to be the 7th seed. I think you might only have to win 4 games to make the 7th seed in the AFC this season. But I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs, but they are going to be a bigger challenge for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is not a team to sleep on. Meanwhile, the Ravens, they might be, and I am very confident in saying that I would pick the Steelers right now to win the AFC North simply because their resume against the AFC North is typically strong, and Baltimore's is typically not. Did yesterday change your mind in any way about the AFC North?
It didn't change my mind. It was obviously good for the Steelers to see the Baltimore Ravens fall because they had not lost in over a month, and they were starting to look like they were unstoppable, especially that rushing attack with Derrick Henry and with Lamar Jackson. But it goes to show you that an AFC North defense, the way it's constructed in Cleveland, can shut down that run game still. And let's not lie, the Steelers defense is right alongside the Browns defense when it comes to effectiveness and shutting down the Baltimore Ravens offensive rushing attack. So it showed me that, okay, the Ravens are not somebody to put on this pedestal as unbeatable, which is where I think a lot of the AFC teams are. But I think what you also have to recognize is it's AFC North football. We've seen this in the past, as you alluded to. And on the Cleveland Browns side of things, they did get that new quarterback bump. And it's not mystical, right? It's not, hey, just because it's a new quarterback, they're mystically going to have a better game. It's because, well, nobody has ever seen that specific quarterback play in that specific offense. There's nothing on film. So it's harder to kind of get ready for. The Steelers will have the benefit of multiple weeks of Jameis Winston in that offense, but also let's not act like it wasn't classic Jameis, right? He threw some beautiful passes. The game-winning touchdown was crazy, but he also made a lot of mistakes and left a lot of opportunities for the Baltimore Ravens to pick him off. And I believe he was picked off once or twice. But I mean, and I think somebody also referenced it here. Kyle Hamilton had a game-winning interception.
He did.
Thrown directly to him.
He did.
By Jameis Winston. So to me, I don't think it changes much because it's just one game, but it certainly helps the Steelers that, one, the Ravens don't look invincible anymore like they did for 5 straight weeks. And two, the Browns looked better, but still not as a team that you should fear that's going to come in here and run all over everybody.
I agree. I agree. And if I worded that incorrectly, that's on me, because I am by no means trying to say the Cleveland Browns about to come in here and run it. Yeah. They might. Yeah. Only because everybody is talking the Dolphins are about to come in here and claim the last playoff spot, and then they lose to the Cardinals. That's where we're at. I mean, I don't know what I actually have it. I'm on ESPN now, so we could just pull it up. I mean, what is the standings in the AFC right now? The 7th seed is the 4-3 Los Angeles Chargers, which are not good. Like that's not what we're looking for. The Indianapolis Colts are 4-4 behind them. The Cincinnati Bengals at 3-5 are a game and a half away from tying the Chargers, and that's a very much so a possibility. That's how bad it is. But I agree. I think it only works out in the Steelers' favor simply because it showed that the Ravens are not invincible, and it at the same time showed that the Browns, you're right. Like it's the quarterback, it's the change, it's the Jameis Winston. You'll see this come and go. You'll see the wave. We'll ride the roller coaster. I think the roller coaster is more dangerous for the Steelers than Deshaun Watson. Yeah. But I still don't think it's, I would not sit here and say the Browns are going to sweep the Steelers. I would just say definitely more of a challenge. But the Ravens, that's the biggest one. That's the big takeaway here, is you continue to not be good in the AFC North with Lamar Jackson. And that's nothing against Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's still an MVP caliber player, but it does leave some room for the Pittsburgh Steelers and some good opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers to take advantage of. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will make our Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Giants game picks and predictions. I'm excited for this one because I won't lie to you guys. My bold predictions were bold. I think my game prediction is even bolder. And then we'll answer all your guys' questions before we head out of here. With that said, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our boys over at Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. And for any that you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with just a few taps. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all accounts, easily creates a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track, and sees your monthly spending trends in each category to know exactly where your money is going. Get alerts if your bills increase in price, there's unusual spending activity, or if you're close to going over your budget. And the new goals feature automatically saves money for you without you even having to think about it. Whether your goal is to pay off your credit card debt, put away money for a house, or just build your savings, Rocket Money makes it easy. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes up to 20%. They automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. They'll deal with customer service. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. They could save members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. That's rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. Shout out our boys over at Rocket Money. Wild to see that facial hair. Forgot that's how I looked like 4 days ago. Crazy times. Crazy times. Did you ever? I mean, you shave the stash every now and then. You know the moments when you like look in the mirror in the morning for a couple of days
for a second.
Yeah, you're like, whoa, forgot
Yeah.
it looks like that. That was crazy. I can't believe I'm going out in public like this. Great times. I will say I got called out a little bit on this not being a real mustache. At some point, I will honor the full mustache. Couldn't do it this weekend. There's lines that have to be drawn between business and family. But I will honor it at some point in the future. All right. With that said, it's week 8, Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Giants, Monday night football. It's going to be a good time. Justin Fields might not play, but Russell Wilson is ready to take on the Giants and looks to go 0-2 as the Pittsburgh Steelers starter. We're going to make some game picks here. I'll toss it to you, Nick. Hit us with the lines. What do you got?
Yeah, let me pull up the lines because it's Monday. I'm not ready for the lines yet. I'm a little off balance because we're not used to this. But I will say, over the weekend we did do game picks all weekend long. 7-7.
7-7.
So
both of us. It's a wild time. And I'll answer Cody Silva's question while we wait here. How many lines did you win? I went 0-4 over the weekend, to be honest. We went 7-7, which is good. And I should have rocked with that. Should have rocked with the 7-7 and just did everything separate. Whatever you're going to put on whatever bet. I went 0-4. And to the point where I started, when you start to roll in the wrong way and you
try to play catch up.
Yeah, you're trying real hard to play catch up and you're like, all right, that's an easy one. I hit the 33.5 under on the Chargers Saints and said that's a lock right now. That is a lock. Final score is 26-8, which they didn't need to score a touchdown at the end either. If we're going to be very honest, there was no need to score a touchdown at the end of that game. Won me my fantasy game, so shout out. But if we're going to be honest, I would have rather won the bet. I would have rather won the bet and like the $9 just to bring me closer to even. That way tonight's game, because we're going hard on the Steelers tonight. That would have put us over. So went 7-7, not the greatest, but I'll take it.
Alrighty, the lines for tonight's game: Steelers are 6-point favorites at home against the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. The over/under currently sits at 36.5 points.
What?
Again, 36.5 points. The Steelers, remember, scored 37 points last week.
What are we doing? The Steelers are over 30 the last 2 games, and Vegas is still sitting here just going, nah. The Steelers historically play better the second of back-to-back home games too, especially on Monday Night Football. Like they play their best football on Monday Night Football on back-to-back home games, and Vegas is sitting here going, they're going to stink. That's a wild one to me. The 6 points is wild, to be honest, but what is it? 36.5?
36.5 is the over/under right now.
I have no money in my DraftKings account, but that will change before the game because 36.5 is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And wait for my bet because it's only going to get more ridiculous. I'll let you go first on this one. 36.5, 6-point spread, Steelers, Giants, week 8. Hit me with your pick.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with basically everybody in the comment section that I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one. I went against the Steelers last week, and now I'm down 2 weeks, so I know not to do that again. Taking the Steelers in this one, mainly because, 1, it's Steelers versus Giants. I think these teams are, as their records indicate. For 2, as Chris said there, Steelers are very good on Monday Night Football, especially at home under Mike Tomlin. And for 3, it was National Tight Ends Day yesterday, and I understand the holiday doesn't extend to Monday, but I think Pat Freiermuth still has some explaining to do, still has to do his part when it comes to National Tight Ends Day. I see 2 touchdowns for number 88, and I see the Steelers winning this one 28-13.
28-13. I like that. I like that score. Modest, acceptable. It's realistic. Or 28 points for Russell Wilson feels like a good mark here. 28 points against a bad Giants defense feels like a good mark here. 13 feels like a good. I mean, did you see the Giants offensive tackle saying he wants one-on-ones with TJ Watt?
He might want them, but I don't think the Giants are. I don't want to say this in the nicest way possible. I don't think the Giants are going to put him in that situation.
I hope not, but
I kind of hope so.
I do, but for him, I hope not, because what are you doing? Like there are people you don't give bulletin board material to. The best defensive player in football is one of them. That's the guy that you just say, Yeah, and he rode the line. He walked the line the day before. I don't know if you saw that quote. What's up, Cat? He's been trying to get up here the whole time.
Well, success and failure.
I saw him the other day saying he was like I'm not like afraid of TJ Watt. He praised TJ Watt and then he finished it saying, I haven't been rattled all season. I don't plan for that to change. And my thought was like, why would you do that, dude? Don't backhand compliment TJ Watt. And then he goes off with this one. That's a scary time. 28-13. I'm going a big win for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Big win. We're going back-to-back games at 37 points here. They're alone going to do it. I just think Russell Wilson is going to show everybody that he's back. He's cooking. When Russ is good, Russ is good. And here's the thing. This is the game where you go into the bye week. You are historically very good in these games. You go into the bye week. It gives you 1 week to prepare for a wide receiver trade and everything else that comes at the deadline. And everybody else around you is just going to talk about how good the Steelers are. That's what I see. And then maybe you face the Commanders and you're brought back to life. Who knows? But right now, this is a team where for 2 weeks, we are going to talk about how good the Pittsburgh Steelers are. I'm going 37. What was the score of the last game? 37-13, I believe. 15. I'm going 37-10 Steelers. It's a bad one. It's a blowout, but there are differences. Okay. I don't have any faith in the Giants offense. None. I mean, you're going to line Malik Neighbors up against Joey Porter. I picked Joey Porter. You're going to line Darius Slayton up against Dante Jackson. I picked Dante Jackson. The offensive line is now officially in a ton of trouble. And you lost Andrew Thomas. So it's a bad time for the Giants. Daniel Jones is already a guy running for his life all the time. I don't see that changing at all. In fact, I expect it to get much, much worse against the Steelers. Defensively, I have no issues with that score. And I mean, Devin Singletary, I respect that Tracy guy that is emerging. I respect, but they're not going to do much against the Steelers. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I just don't see the Steelers and Mike Tomlin taking his foot off the gas to look at this and say, well, this is Russell Wilson. We're just going to win 13-10. We're going to win 20-10. No, this is Russell Wilson. This is the guy he wanted. He wants to show the world that he could put up 40 points a week and that this offense is ridiculous. That's what's going to happen. I'm going 37-10. I don't even think this one's close. I think this is a game where most people are turning it off by the third quarter, and we are soaring into Tuesday feeling real good about the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the bye week. Again, 37-10 Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'd say it's bold, but most of your picks are bold when we go to the Steelers game. So do you think that at one point in this game, we could see the storyline of 2 years ago, Russell Wilson was traded to the Broncos for a package including Drew Lock, and tonight, both of them 2 years later are playing for different teams?
I could see that. I mean, what do you like if you're the Giants, just don't, but at the same time, the Giants don't care if Daniel Jones gets killed. You know, if Daniel Jones gets sacked 40 times, the Giants don't care. They just want to see what they got in the guy. They want to know if this is the season that we give up on him or this is the season that we keep going. And to be honest, this is not Daniel Jones's fault. The Giants are a very bad football team with very bad development and nobody around them. And they got rid of their best player in Saquon Barkley and did nothing to replace him. So I don't think this is Daniel Jones's fault. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is a starting quarterback, but I don't think he's the worst quarterback in football. And I blame the Giants. But I could see that. Especially late in the second half. I could see, you know what I mean? I could see Kyle Allen finishing this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right.
You're on 37-10. What you going to do? You're going to leave him in there?
I know Kenny Pickett got in last week against the Giants, but I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit.
I'm just saying. What did he throw a touchdown? What's the worst? What's worse, Kenny Pickett or Kyle Allen throwing a touchdown against you?
Let me look up what Kenny Pickett did last week.
I would not imagine. Wouldn't imagine it was much here. I would look at it and say couple of passes, no touchdowns.
Yeah, he was 0 for 1 and was sacked. So that's
classic Kenny Pickett.
Not great. Yeah.
Classic Kenny Pickett. Wish him nothing but the best over in Philly. But I could see this being a Kyle Allen finish in the fourth quarter where everybody's dapping up, excited on the side. Because they're not going to put Justin in there with a bum hamstring. That's just Nah, not going to happen. 37-10. I'm feeling real good about it. That's our picks for week 8, Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Giants. With that, we're going to round out this show the way we do every single day. We're going to answer as many of your questions as we can. Toss them in the chat. We'll get to them before we head out of here. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Let's start with Jay Coyne, who says, would Omar make a run at CeeDee Lamb? Why wouldn't you at this point with very limited options?
I mean, the problem there is that CeeDee Lamb got paid. So both sides of things, you're not going to, if you're the Cowboys, you're not going to trade CeeDee Lamb. And if you're, especially Jerry Jones, like Jerry Jones is a stubborn dude. I just have a hard time believing he's going to say, I put all my eggs in one basket and I'm going to get rid of that basket. And the Steelers side of things, like you're going to have to give up a first round pick and a boatload. Like that was where the line was drawn for Brandon Ayuk, is you weren't going to give up a first round pick plus a boatload of money. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, you're paying over $30 million a year, and you're probably going to have to give up a first-round pick. I just don't see it. I don't think it's realistic. Would it be a good move? I mean, depending on what you're trading, it would definitely boost the offense. It would be a superstar next to George Pickens, but I don't know if that's a realistic option for the Steelers.
All righty, let's go over to SteelerMan47 says, do you think CJ Henderson or Cam Sutton will play tonight?
Cam Sutton is not eligible to play tonight. He's still got one more game. He can't return until week 10 against the Commanders. He's actually tomorrow at 4 p.m. or tomorrow at noon, I want to say, is when he is officially reinstated. So he cannot play today. I do not think CJ Henderson is going to play simply because Dante Jackson finished the week off of the injury report, which is good news for the Steelers. He'll start. James Pierre will be the backup. CJ Henderson will most likely be inactive tonight.
All right, let's jump over to Victor, who says, do you expect Jaylen Warren's production to go up now that he's been back for 3 weeks and he can finally get his role back?
I do expect it to continue to increase. I don't think he's been a bad player, but he's a big play guy. Like Jaylen Warren's a dude who you put out there and he catches 3 25-yard runs and then a 60-yard burst for a touchdown. That's what he does. And I expect that to start to come alive a little bit more now that he's healthy and working his way back in. But at the same time, you're not going to take Najee off the field when Najee Harris is running the way that he is the past couple of weeks. So it's more of a ride the hot hand. Najee's the hot hand. I could see Jaylen continuing to improve and get bigger roles, especially if the Steelers get an early lead in this one. And, you know, in the second half, they're just dominating.
Let's jump down to Adam Carson, who says, what do you think of McCormick playing solid? And also, is Zach Frazier going to be playing tonight?
No, Zach Frazier is out. I anticipate Zach Frazier to be back in practice for week 9. Not sure if he's going to play in week 9, but I expect him to start to kind of get that ball rolling towards a return against the Commanders. As for Mason McCormick, he's an absolute stud. Absolute stud. We talked all offseason about you can't put the FCS kid out there against an NFL talent. It's too big of a jump. It's a risk, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I still think I would have rocked with James Daniels and Isaac Seumalo, and this offensive line would have been great. But Mason McCormick has been a very nice surprise for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That kid looks I mean, him and Zach Frazier together are so much fun to watch. The Steelers, that's the thing with the Steelers' interior offensive line right now, is they have built it to be mean and nasty, and that is who those two are. And it's been a blast when they're out there together.
Let's jump over to Vibin' with the Dogs, who says, my question before I go, what moves do you see the Steelers making during the trade deadline, if they make any at all?
Yeah, I do expect them to make a wide receiver trade. That has not changed. I don't think it's going to change. I know that Omar Khan has been working the phones, trying to find some interest somewhere and see where things land. He's not going to get thirsty. You know, it's not going to be a situation where Omar is just giving everything for anybody. It doesn't matter. He's going to be logical about it. He's going to make the right move for the Pittsburgh Steelers both now and later. But I do expect the wide receiver market, it's going to heat up. We have a whole week. And in that week, Garrett Wilson will start to become a topic of conversation. You're going to have guys like Calvin Ridley, possibly, who I don't think is an option for the Steelers, but he looks good, and the Titans are so much worse than they imagined themselves being. Tyler Boyd, possibly, who, I mean, the Steelers didn't want him the first time. Maybe they don't want him the second time. You're going to get names, lots of names out there who start to emerge in this wide receiver conversation. The New England Patriots reports came out yesterday that they are literally listening to every single call. Anybody who calls, the Patriots will listen to and try to see if they could get something done. They have 2 guys. And then the next name is going to be asked next here in Jacoby Myers. I think that's an option as well.
Yeah, well, since you already alluded to it, Jay Coyne wants to know, is Jacoby Myers of the Las Vegas Raiders an option for the Steelers?
Yeah, I think if the Raiders won yesterday, it would have been much less of an option. But at 2-6, you don't really have a quarterback situation. You're not looking the greatest. Jacoby Myers looks good, and you got to at some point build for the future. Why not? I don't know what Jacoby Myers' contract situation looks like. I would imagine he's got to be close to the end of his deal with the Raiders. If he is, then the Raiders have to be looking at it and saying, we'll trade him to try and get some draft capital. And I think you could probably get Jacoby Myers for a third or a 4th round pick, which would be pretty good for the Steelers. I do think that's going to be an option over the next week.
Let's go over to Mr. Solderboy, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, if you were Mike Tomlin and Beanie Bishop looks great again tonight and comes up with another pick, plays lockdown defense, would you still pull him for Sutton when Sutton returns?
Yes. Yes, I would. And simply because Beanie Bishop is an undrafted rookie who you want to develop, and you're not going to, there's a difference between putting him behind Cam Sutton and benching him completely with no shot of ever playing. Beanie Bishop will still see the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's not going to be out there all the time. He's not going to be out there on crucial downs. And yeah, he had one good game against Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, but the Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets are not playing well right now. And if he has another game, it's against a bad New York Giants team. There have been plenty of moments where Beanie has not looked great. And that's okay. Like, that's what I have to stress that so heavily, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers like what they have in Beanie Bishop. He is the future of the nickelback position, but that doesn't mean he has to be right now. It could be a better option in Cam Sutton, who's more reliable, who's a better fit right there this season, who gives them bigger Super Bowl aspirations. I mean, you find yourself in the AFC Championship game, and it's Beanie Bishop trying to go up against, I don't know, say Travis Kelce is the guy that he somehow finds himself locked up against. You're telling me that's the matchup you want? No. And a year from now, maybe, but not right now. So Cam Sutton still gets the starting job. From what I've been told, the Steelers have no plans to change that. Cam Sutton will be the starter once he's back in week 10.
Yinzer Joe wants to know, is there a chance that we see Cordero Patterson tonight?
No, he's been ruled out with an ankle injury again. After the bye week is what I kind of sit on. I would imagine Jonathan Ward gets called up again for his 3rd time, or they just keep Aaron Chaplin and say, like, whatever, it's the Giants. But I would imagine Jonathan Ward gets called up for his 3rd and final time before Cordero comes back in week 10.
Alrighty, let's go over to Nicolo, who says, what is your dark horse pick for a wide receiver trade target?
Oh, that's a really good one. Kendrick Bourne is my dark horse pick for a wide receiver target. A guy that the Patriots thought was a wide receiver 1 2 years ago, who has shown sparks in the NFL, who will be dirt cheap for a team. I mean, you're looking at a 4th round pick max for this guy. I think he could come to Pittsburgh and be a sound wide receiver 2, adds some deep ball action plus some underneath routes. I just think he fits really well in the Arthur Smith offense. And he's never had an opportunity with a good offense, and I would like to see him get one. So my dark horse would be Kendrick Bourne. I also would say, if we're going crazy hypothetical dark horse, Garrett Wilson is in there as well.
All righty. Next question, Lifted Ones. What's your second half of the season production based on the Steelers being even more healthy following the bye week?
Yeah, I mean, you can never predict that the Steelers or any team in the NFL is going to get healthy. More games means more injuries. But say they are healthy, say they somehow avoid the injury bug, which, again, won't happen. But let's say that they do. I mean, I see them winning the AFC North and finishing with 11, 12 wins this season and feeling pretty good about where they stand. I just think that at some point you're going to be able to beat the Ravens. At some point you have a shot to beat the Chiefs. It's going to be those games. The Cincinnati Bengals are not a challenge right now. I would just say AFC North title, I don't know, 11, 12 wins, depending on where the Ravens sit. You're probably one game ahead of them.
All righty. Eric says, it scares me that not one single person has mentioned that this game has, quote, blow it written all over it. Does Tomlin have the team ready, or do they all think this is an easy night at work?
Now, the difference between a blow it game and this one, and don't get me wrong, like this does have blow it written on it. It definitely does. This definitely does. But they are typically much better in the second of back-to-back home games. They are dominant on Monday Night Football. And going into the bye week, it just feels like the energy in Acrisure Stadium is going to be electric. And Russell Wilson is a different quarterback that just doesn't let you do those things. You know what I mean? He's the guy that's keeping George Pickens after practice to make sure that George gets more work. And that's never been a thing. Like George has never stayed after practice to get more work with the quarterback. Don't get me wrong. Like there have been times, but consistently Russ is making that happen. I think the mindset is different with Russell Wilson right now. Again, it could happen, but I just think historically this is a game that the Steelers win.
All right. J Coin says, does Omar make a run at T. Higgins in free agency this summer? I think his contract is up.
I could see possibly. I would imagine T. Higgins is looking for $30+ million a year, though, in free agency. I don't know if the Steelers are going to be willing to give that up to T. Higgins. There's potential. His name will be mentioned. There will be negotiations. That's a positive. Like you could definitely say that T. Higgins will be on the Steelers' radar in free agency. Do they land him? I think that comes down to dollars and cents. I wouldn't say I'm confident in it, but I don't know if I'd be confident in any $30 million wide receiver for the Steelers.
J Coin has another one here. Says, any chance the Steelers trade for an O lineman before the deadline? Skoronski from Tennessee would be nice on this line.
Would he? I don't know. Like he's a guard. You don't really need a guard. You got some good guards. You know, you're not gonna replace Isaac Seumalo. That's not gonna happen. You're not gonna replace Mason McCormick. So I don't think so. I don't. I mean, Mike Tomlin said that they like Broderick Jones' development. They're not going to get rid of that guy. Dan Moore is their best tackle right now. Like he's working himself into another contract the way that he's playing this season. I would say probably not for an offensive lineman.
Steelerman 47 says, when will we see Corey Trice return back from the IR?
I would imagine after the bye week. Week 9 is when he opens his practice window, and then as long as no setbacks happen, he will be back on the field against the Commanders. That's my guess. Starting to do a little bit of work with the Steelers, working on that hamstring injury, starting to come back. This week was his return window that he could open. He didn't. I think that's the right move because they won't practice during the bye week, or if they do, they'll practice once during the bye week. Start it in week 9, open the window and see what happens.
Cody Silva has an interesting hypothetical here. Says, would you rather play Kansas City or Detroit? I'm assuming he's talking about playoffs.
Oh, in the playoffs, I'd rather play Detroit. I'd much rather play Detroit. I mean, Detroit looks nasty, but we're talking in the play. That's like asking, would you rather play LeBron James or anybody else in the playoffs? It's anybody else. The answer is that's Patrick Mahomes. That's Andy Reid. That's Travis Kelce. They are a whole other animal in the post. I mean, when Matt Moore wins you playoff games, against a good Jacksonville team, that just shows you where the Kansas City Chiefs are a different beast in the playoffs. I would go Detroit. I mean, either one of them is a huge test. It's very different. They're 1A. I think Detroit's the best team of football right now. And I would say Kansas City's number 2, but I would say Detroit's the best team of football right now. Either one of these guys are terrifying, but you got to beat terrifying to win a Super Bowl. At the end of the day, you are not going to walk in there and play the Dallas Cowboys and say, here we go. This is for 7 right here. You're not going to walk your way into the Super Bowl playing the Jets, the Jaguars and like the Browns. It's not going to happen. You got to play some tough teams. So I would go Detroit in the playoffs simply because Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are scary in the playoffs.
Not only that means you'd already won the AFC. So I wouldn't mind seeing the Steelers in the Super Bowl. So I'll pick that as well.
Very true. I would have a hard time. I mean, I'd go Steelers, obviously, but the Lions are a cool football team. They are cool. Don't take that as like, oh, no. Obviously, I want the parade. I want to cover the parade. I want to feel the locker room after that game. But Detroit's a cool football team.
Let's go over to Adam, who says, what part of the Giants offense possesses the biggest threat for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Malik Neighbors. It's definitely Malik Neighbors. He is dynamite. When he goes off, he really goes off. He's one of the brightest young spots of the entire NFL, but definitely the Giants. Malik Neighbors would be that, but I think the Steelers have a threat to him in Joey Porter Jr. I think they'll be able to handle him. He'll probably get one or two, but I mean, maybe not, because Joey Porter Jr. has a pretty good resume shutting down these guys.
Let's finish it off with Jay Coyne, who says, with Russ, does Pickens elevate to a top 5 or maybe top 10 receiver in the league by the end of this season?
He has potential. You know, you can't say yes to that because you just don't know how things are going to work. But this is the best quarterback he's played with, passing quarterback that he's played with. And you got to say, you know, this is what we're going to see. This is when we're going to find out how good George Pickens truly is. So I want to say he has the potential, and I feel good leaving it at that and putting a pin in it and saying at the end of the season we will see exactly where George Pickens stands.
We did get one last one under the wire here. Pittsburgh Heather says, could Godwin, Hopkins, or Allen be UFA targets next year for the Steelers?
Chris Godwin, I know the Steelers absolutely love. I don't think DeAndre Hopkins would be on the Steelers list simply because he's going to be 34. What are you going to sign him for? And I believe there'll be better options, not talent-wise, but youth-wise, just all-around fit. Keenan Allen, I believe, is the Allen there. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. The Steelers also love Keenan Allen. The problem with Keenan Allen is that he gets hurt a lot, and the Steelers might make a run at him, but it's the DeAndre Hopkins situation. It's can you find a better option? Probably. And that's nothing against Keenan Allen, but just the circumstance of it all, you could probably find a better option. I would say Chris Godwin's the best bet here. He's going to cost some money, but he's worth the money at the same time, and he's still got some years left in his NFL career. So I would pick Godwin out of those three.
All righty. That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to go normal schedule, 4 p.m. tomorrow. I know that there's a game tonight, but that will give us all day tomorrow to recap everything, find all the news, so on and so forth. It will be a busy day for the Pittsburgh Steelers, certainly, as they prepare for the bye week. With that said, enjoy the game tonight and enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.